If you're watching this video, you would like to go through today's chemistry lesson with a teacher. So you've already watched the introduction video. If you haven't, make sure you click here and go to YouTube to watch it, and then come back to this video. Engage. Number 2, describe an object. Describe something you have at your house or one of the things you see below. Post the description as a comment on this lesson. We'll do that at the end. Make it really detailed so that someone can guess what you are describing without giving it away. So you can choose something in your house or you can choose one of these objects. I am going to choose the Nintendo one. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to start by saying the color of my object is black, green, red, yellow, and blue. The height, or how tall, the height of my object is, it's probably about 2 inches tall. The width of my object is, well, we know width is from here to here. I'd say that's probably about 5 inches. The weight of my object is about half a pound. All right. So now I've answered the questions describing my object. Again, you can choose to describe the Nintendo with me or describe something else. Next, what type of words did we use to describe our object? Did we use color, height, width, or weight? Well, we used all of them. I'm going to say I used color because here we talked about color. Height, because here we talked about height, width, and weight to describe the object. Great. So now I'm done with part 2. Now we're going to explore. We're going to read the information below or click here to watch a 1-minute video. I'll just read it to you. So physical properties are important for our daily lives because they help us organize and identify the things we use. Physical properties can help us answer questions like, which of the stacks of bowls is going to fit best into a cabinet? So if I'm looking at these 3 stacks of bowls, which would be best for putting it away? The stack of bowls C takes up the least amount of space because the bowls were stacked from largest to smallest. Size is one example of a physical property. You probably use physical properties in some way many times every day. Look around your house. Do you notice that your family has organized any objects using physical properties like size, color, or shape? Here are some examples I found at my house: silverware, shoes, and pizza boxes. Now we need to answer the question. Describe how any group of objects in your house, plates, shoes, video games, etc., is organized using physical properties: color, size, shape, etc. If you get stuck, you can describe the pictures above. So I'm going to delete this sentence and I'm going to say, so I'm going to describe the shoes. So I'm going to say the shoes in my house are arranged by size. We have the biggest ones closest to the door and the smallest ones farther from the door, kind of like in this picture. Again, you could write what I wrote, or you could choose to write about something in your house. Explain. We're going to watch a 2-minute video that describes what physical properties are. So I click here, and I go to the video. It's taken a while to get started. Unit 1, Properties of Matter. Lesson 3, Physical Properties of Matter.
For our 3rd lesson in our matter unit, we're going to be looking at physical properties that we can use to describe different objects or different substances. And when we talk about properties, basically what we mean are just characteristics that we might use to describe something. All matter can be described based on different properties that it has. Some of these we would consider to be physical properties, and some would be chemical properties. Today we're going to be looking at the physical properties, however, which are properties or characteristics that we can observe without having to change the object or substance. We can look at it, we can measure it without actually altering it, without creating any new substance from it through chemical reactions. For instance, if we look at an apple, we can examine its physical properties, we can describe its color, its shape, its size, its density, its mass, its texture. So many different things about it that we can observe just by looking at this apple or just by measuring it. Physical properties can include things like color, mass, volume, density, melting point, boiling point, conductivity, how well heat or electricity might pass through it, solubility, whether it dissolves in water, viscosity, how well it flows or how resistant it is to flowing in the case of liquids, or flexibility, how well it bends. And, it's important that we're familiar with what the different properties are and how we can use them to describe different materials, different substances that we might encounter during our science class.
All right, so now we've learned about physical properties. And here are some examples of physical properties that we need to read about. Color, that's a way to describe objects. Odor, you can describe how something smells. Melting point, the temperature it needs to be to turn from a solid to a liquid. Boiling point, the temperature it needs to be to go from a liquid to a gas. Flammability, how likely it is to catch fire. So like water is not very likely to catch fire. It has low flammability, but a match is very likely. Solubility, how likely something is to dissolve or disappear into something, usually water. So like salt can dissolve or disappear into water. And density, which is the ratio of mass, which is kind of like how much something weighs, but not quite, divided by volume, or how much space something takes up, how big it is. What is a physical property? Well, we just learned a physical property is how you describe an object. Remember that an object is a thing or a substance like a gas or liquid. Physical properties are how you describe something without changing it into something new. So for example, if I burn my wood, that's a chemical property because now my wood isn't wood anymore. So physical properties are just how we describe something without changing it. Elaborate. Complete the table below to describe water using physical properties. And here's some words that we can use. No smell, not likely to catch on fire, 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius, clear, 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius, or 1 gram per milliliter at room temperature. So our first one is color. Which one of these words describes color? I think clear. So I'm going to delete this and write that for water, the color is clear. Odor. Okay, so odor, I think I'm going to look up here to remember. Oh yeah, it's smell. Okay, so which one of these describes water's odor or smell? No smell. Melting point. Remember, that's when something changes from a solid to a liquid. So when does water change from a solid to a liquid? It's 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when water can turn from a solid, ice, to a liquid, water. And if we're using Celsius, it's 0 degrees. Boiling point. So that's when water turns into a gas. It's probably the hotter temperature, 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, so 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Flammability, how likely it is to catch on fire. Water is not likely to catch on fire, okay. So here I would describe that physical property of flammability, not likely to catch on fire. And finally, density, which if we look up here, density is the mass divided by the volume. And the only one I haven't used is this one, which makes sense because we measure mass in grams and volume in milliliters. So 1 gram per milliliter. 1 gram per milliliter. And the reason it says at room temperature is that density can actually change in water depending on how hot or cold it is. But if it's at room temperature, it's 1 gram per milliliter. All right, time to evaluate. Let's reflect on our learning targets. We're going to rate ourselves from 1 to 4 on how well we understand. Remembering that 1 is I'm still confused and need to ask a classmate or teacher for help. 2 is I'm starting to understand, but I've got some questions. 3, I can do it, but it requires effort. And 4 is I can do it well enough to teach someone else. I can give examples of physical properties. So think to yourself, what are some physical properties we learned about today? If you were able to say things on your own like color, odor, melting point, boiling point, flammability, solubility, and density, then give yourself a 3 or a 4. If that was hard for you, give yourself a 1 or a 2. Next, I can use physical properties to describe matter. We're almost done here, guys. Stick with us. So physical properties to describe matter. So were you able to describe an object in your house using physical properties? And were you able to describe water using the physical properties of color, odor, melting point, boiling point, flammability, and density? If you were able to do that, give yourself a 3 or a 4. If it was hard, give yourself a 1 or a 2. Finally, you need to share your description from question 2 on Google Classroom. So you're going to go to Google Classroom, and you're going to find this class. I don't have this class, so I'll just use a different example. And you're going to find the assignment, say it was this. And when you click View Assignment, at the bottom, you should see a place to comment here. And in this comment section, you are going to copy and paste your description from here. So the way that you copy is you highlight, and then you can either go to Edit, Copy, or Command V. Then I'm going to go back to Google Classroom and press Command V. And then I'll press Send to post it. Then you need to respond to 2 students' questions. So what you do is you find a student you want to respond to, you press this button to reply, and then you can guess what object they were describing. When you're done with that, you should be done with today's lesson. Let's double check. Yep, we left our comment with our description. We replied to 2 classmates' posts. If you get stuck, you can watch this video. And don't forget to turn in when you're finished. I hope this was helpful.